Hello everyone, this is our PLDC video presentation on new trends in Prolog. So, these are our team members: EBP Soisa, CVL Singer, AMGT Bandarnayaka, KBVT Laknath, ST Jaratne, DHK Virakori. So, this is our agenda. First of all, we would like to give an introduction on what is programming language, and then we are going to give a brief introduction about logic-based languages and procedural languages and give a comparison on that. Then after we will be discussing on benefits and the context of usages of those given languages. Finally, we would like to discuss about a programming language such as Prolog and advantages, disadvantages, usages, applications of such programming language. And we are also expected to give you some sample codes of using such languages also. Then after we will be discussing on how program structure is designed and modern trends of Prolog language. Okay then, let's start the presentation. Well, what is a programming language? Well, a programming language is a semantics and syntax which allow users to communicate with the computer. In other words, a programming language can be used to create programs that control the behavior of a machine to express algorithms precisely. Basically, there are four types of programming languages: procedural languages, logic-based languages, functional languages, and object-oriented languages. In this presentation, we are primarily discussing about procedural languages and logic-based languages. Okay. Now it is time to consider about what is a procedural language. Well, a procedural language is a vocabulary and set of grammatical rules for instructing a computer to perform a specific task. Therefore, in procedural languages, it is required to mention what should be done and what are the steps that need to be carried out. Such programming languages are BASIC, C, C++, COBOL, Fortran, Ada, and Pascal. Well, let's move on to logic-based languages. Logic-based languages, these use mathematical logic for computer programming. In these languages, everything is considered as mathematical arguments, and they take mathematical arguments as inputs and do the computation. Such languages are Mercury, Oz, Erlang, Datalog, and of course Prolog. Okay, now it is time to consider about procedural languages and logical languages parallelly. So let's make a quick look at both of them and consider which one is better and what are the similarities, what are the differences in procedural languages and logic-based languages. Of course, there are many differences in those languages, and there are similarities also. For an example, logic-based programs focus on the problems and focus on what the problem is, but in the procedural programs, it focuses on how to solve it. Procedural languages rely on memory, where the logic programs try to minimize the access to the memory. For an example, using logic-based languages, it tries to minimize the accessing memory, so it tries to replicate the effects happening from the von Neumann architecture. And due to the von Neumann architecture and bottleneck problems, procedural languages had their own limitations. So in logic programming, they try to eliminate it using logical approach. So it does only use the CPU. So no need of memory. Unlike in procedural programs, logical programs consider computations as evaluation of mathematical expressions. Okay, so it is worthwhile checking what are the benefits of procedural programming. Well, the procedural programming language has the ability to use the same code at different places in the program without copying it. So these things can be considered as functions. And it is an easier way to keep track of program flow than a collection of goto or jump statements. So in these goto statements or using goto statements or jump statements will turn a large complicated program and complex one to read and understand. And also it has the ability to strongly modular or structure. And of course, there are many benefits in logic-based languages as well, such as increase the speed in program execution, efficient usage of memory, ability to use high-order functions, developing expert systems, and generating mathematical logics are some of them. And in this case, I would like to explain what is a high-order function. A high-order function is a function which takes an function as an input and has the ability to output a function as well. So these kinds of things really makes a program an effective one. So using a logic-based program is very beneficial in such cases. Also, so since we know what is procedural language and the logic-based languages, it is worthwhile checking which one is the best option. Well, both types of languages are good in their own context of usage. For an example, procedural languages are good in some situations where the problem domain is well defined. For an example, for trivial system, for an accounting system, for an stocks exchange system, those systems are very trivial. So these kinds of systems can use procedural languages such as C or C#. But in a situation where the problem domain is not clear, or the situation when the system is a critical system such as a robotic system or nuclear power plant system or an AI system, so those kinds of stuff we cannot handle using procedural languages. So in that case, we need to convert it to, and we need to focus our aim into logic-based languages, because they are the best option to be selected in such situations. So now we are going to consider about the Prolog language, which is our main focus of study. Well, as the name implies, Prolog is the programming logic. The language was first conceived in France in early 1970s, and the first Prolog system was developed in 1972 by Elian Comeraru and Philip Russell. Well, a Prolog is a logic-based language which is designed to implement the system with artificial intelligence and computational linguistics. And Prolog is based on formal logic, and unlike other languages, Prolog is declarative. Okay, so now it is an essential thing to move on to the inside of Prolog, and so we can get a better understanding about the language. In Prolog, program logic is expressed in terms of relations, and computation is initiated by a query over these relationships. So whenever the user gives a query, or whenever user gives a goal, it takes it as a query, and the Prolog program runs on depending that query. So it checks the rules and determine what the output should be. And also Prolog has a single data type which is known as term. A term can be atoms, numbers, variables, or compound statements. And also Prolog programs describe relationships defined by means of clauses. There are two types of clauses in Prolog: facts and rules. So it is time for we to discuss about the execution in Prolog. Well, it starts when the user starts the positioning a single goal called query. Then the Prolog program tries to find the correct method of execution for the negated query. This procedure or this mechanism is known as SLA resolution. And whenever there are multiple goals, that means user need to achieve more than one goal at a time, Prolog uses a special mechanism called backtracking. In backtracking, the procedure which